Hi, welcome back to part 2 of Cambridge InsideOut. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm still Robert Winters.
Yep. And we're going to continue talking about building, right? Or things like that.
That's right. We're going to talk about the future.
The future.
Got to talk about the future.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one development, not so much a building development,
right.
but something that happened, I think it today or yesterday,
Yeah.
was that there was an announcement of the appointment of what's called the Volpe Working Group. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this on this show to some degree in the past, about this kind of tricky business about the Volpe site, the site of the Volpe Transportation Building in Kendall Square.
Can you summarize it again for those that are...
All right, so basically there's a federally owned property that was in a sense the booby prize
Transportation Center,
when what was supposed to be the Mission Control Space Center for NASA.
Right, that's right.
And they pulled out,
that's right.
We got sort of a consolation present was the Volpe Transportation Center.
Right.
Right, maybe it's not quite as simple as that, but
so it was all federally used. It was a government building.
So I think it's on the order of about 14-acre federal site, which is largely surface parking lots and just empty space.
Wow.
And it's right in the middle of the sort of like the high-tech capital of the universe. Innovation.
You're going to hear that a lot this half hour.
Yeah.
Kind of
words we're sick of.
Yeah, words. Millennial? No.
Right. Innovation,
keep going.
right.
All right, let's be serious.
Right.
Volpe Working Group.
So the people, in many respects, people thought, well, nothing's ever going to happen there because Volpe's there for eternity, and dealing with the federal government is an impossibility. Right. And then, out of nowhere, it wasn't out of nowhere, there were a lot of people lobbying, including congressmen, to try and get some movement on it. The people from the Volpe Transportation Center said, well, our building is actually pretty outmoded, and we could use a new building. And there's relatively recently, it was a change in federal laws or regulations that permitted federal property like that.
To be like partnered with something.
Yeah, so what you could do is, rather than sell off the property and build something elsewhere, what you could do is you could have a developer build you a new building elsewhere on the property, so you could maybe lose the other building and repurpose it.
Yeah.
And then you could basically then make the rest of the property available essentially as the payment for the creation of the new building. So this would require contracting with a developer. So the federal government would then, so what is it, I forget the name of the agency, but they would then contract with a developer who would then have rights to develop other parts of the property. Now the federal purpose, which is the transportation center, would not be subject to local zoning. Never is.
Would not be subject. So,
no, if it's federal, it's not.
You mean the part that would be for them?
Right, but the rest of it would.
Would be. And is it already zoned for whatever purposes we want?
I should know, but I'm a little sketchy on this.
It must be as commercial. I don't know if it's residential.
Well, the thing is, it's all basically been federal, so zoning was sort of irrelevant.
Right, yeah.
So basically, the challenge then is before the city to come up with a zoning for that district to help shape what uses should come in there. So there's a certain amount of housing, a certain amount of open space, certain amount of commercial development, because there has to be a revenue generator so that the developer can have an incentive so that they can actually
even
pay.
Go forth and do the thing.
Right.
Okay.
So and it's got to cover the cost of constructing.
So how long has this process gone on since we first approached it?
It's really been going on for a couple of years.
Okay.
And there was some sense of a rush because we had to do it before the new administration
some kind of expiration
over.
thing.
It wasn't a real expiration, but
right.
I think there was some desire to get things done before the presidential.
While Obama was still.
Exactly, when there's a transition in the federal government, because maybe a change in policy by then.
Trump would love that.
Right. Yeah. Right. Put in a hotel.
A big hotel with his name on it.
Right.
Oh God.
So,
all right.
So anyway, but here's the thing: is it's unique. It's absolutely unique compared to any other zoning matter ever, I think, in the city.
In the city? Okay.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you are having to guess at what the actual value will be to the development to say how far can you press the zoning to try
to attract a developer.
You want to extract, you want to be able to accommodate some open space, you want to be able to make sure that a certain amount of housing, affordable housing included,
is that an area that's conducive to any kind of housing?
Well, the one problem with, but they're putting housing on Ames Street now.
Yeah, but
And this is basically when they reconstituted the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority a few years ago.
right.
I think it was in 2013, maybe around April-ish. So Bob Healy made some appointments. They revitalized the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority. I thought it might just basically be sort of part of its final farewell, but it actually has been completely revitalized. So now they've been promoting housing development on Ames Street.
Good man there too, Jason Zog.
Jason Zog is a sort of a project planner with them, but really everybody associated with it, including all 5 board members, are I think top-notch people.
Yeah.
So they have a say in this, but they're not really the controlling interest in that district, because that's the federal property.
Right.
That'll be subject to local zoning.
Right.
I suppose you could get the redevelopment authority involved in it, but they're really not involved in it now. But we'll see. But the thing is, it's crystal ball, because you have to, if you just say, we're going to make the zoning be this way, and then, and have it to be, 60% or 70% housing and a certain amount of commercial and a bunch of open space.
No one's going to bid on
Then
it.
a developer says, sorry, we lose our shirt on this, or the risk is too high.
Right.
And then you're back to square one. So you have to make the zoning almost guessing what the developer will find acceptable before you can do anything. It does need to be rezoned. We'll see.
So this working group then, is it form people that sort of know this kind of stuff? That know business, know zoning?
Well, I think what
Are they architects?
you can't simply have like everybody from the community just sort of yelling all at once.
No, I know. So is this a representative group?
Yeah, so what they did was they got a group, and the people are Peter Crawley,
Oh, you actually
who's
have
a
the
resident
names.
of East Cambridge, Gerald O'Leary, who's
Oh,
a
yeah, it's right
resident of
here.
East Cambridge, Kendall Square area. Steve Lemaster, I've actually inadvertently written over this, so I'm having a hard time. Steve
Well, there's right
Lemaster
here.
of
You want me to
Wellingham.
go to this page?
Yeah, why don't you just pop that up
All right.
here? And
Well, it's
we're up
actually
right
there.
now.
Yeah,
So
we're
let's
up
just
there
do
right
that
now.
here. There's Brian Dacey, who's represents a business in Kendall Square Association. Renee Gray is a resident from Area 4, the Port. Esther Hainig is also a resident from Area 4, the Port.
Right.
Both of those are pretty strong advocates for housing, I might add.
Yes.
Chris Barr, who's from Biogen, is one of the business representatives.
Okay. Oh, Kathy Bourne.
And then 2 others of great significance. One is Hugh Russell, who's, as far as I'm concerned, he is the heart of the Cambridge Planning Board. And then there's Kathy Bourne. Yep, she's actually the chair of the Redevelopment Authority,
cool.
and former city councilor for 10 years.
She's, I like her a lot.
Bourne.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a lot of residents. Do they have any experience with zone? There's no architects. What's that about?
Well, Kathy Bourne is.
Oh, true. And Hugh Russell, is he an architect?
And he is as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've got some architects. We've got some, and they're all
Women,
most
men,
of them are residents. It's a good
People
mix.
of color. Good.
So hopefully they'll help to kind of focus the discussion.
Okay.
They are going to have a meeting. I think I have it written down somewhere.
It's
can't
not
remember
here.
if I put it on here or not. I think I did actually. But they're having a meeting on Wednesday, October 12th at 5:30.
Oh yeah, right. When I hit on that link you had, it came up with this.
So it's actually over at the Cambridge.
Is that public?
It's a public meeting. It's at the Cambridge Innovation Center, which is at 1 Broadway.
Yeah,
It's called the
attendees are
Badger
asked to
Building.
bring identity. Yes, I've been at that building.
I've been to
It's
those
very-
buildings. You really have to jump through some hoops to go in.
You do.
But it is a public meeting. It's Wednesday, October 12th. So if you have some interest in this, come attend here. But there's
There's
apparently
a photo
some
of it.
movement.
Okay, so why don't you go to that,
so this
because
is back
that's
here.
interesting. So
that's
that
just a
tall.
picture of the Volpe Center.
So is it all of that? Is it that tall building, or
Well,
is that
it's the
something
tall
else?
building, and then you see this sort of more of a
Whoops, sorry.
podium down at the base there.
Yeah, that's the one I kind of
Yeah.
remember, but I didn't realize the tall building was also part of it.
That's really the core building, but as
So-
a transportation center, the design of the building is really not ideally suited
Right.
for what they really want.
So are they going to actually dismantle that tall building?
Well, that's really a call that the developer will have to make, whether
That seems like a
repurposable.
big project.
Well,
yeah.
sometimes it's harder to repurpose an existing building than it is to
especially
just
if
blow
the
it up.
systems are old and
Yeah, just
blow
take it
up. I
down.
want to be there that day.
And just implode it,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what they have to do.
Well, actually, for a building
No,
that
maybe
big, they could just tear it apart, yeah.
That's true. In fact,
Wrecking
you don't
ball.
implode when it's that around so many things. I don't think they use that.
So anyway, something is going to happen. Again, I've said on this program, I'll
Yeah.
say it again. This is one situation where I think our resident architect, city councilor Dennis Carlone,
Oh, it's gonna be
needs
very
to step
crucial,
up
yeah.
play a dominant role, I think, in helping to shape this, because he has the expertise, and you do need a little bit of political will, and I think the people, a lot of his supporters might be the people who might be most skeptical, so he's really in the position where he can kind of find the middle ground. To whatever degree you need a political solution to this, but it is zoning, so ultimately it's going to have to come before the ordinance committee, so I hope, and this is not to in any way to diminish the role of any of the other counselors, but I think this is a guy who did urban planning and East Cambridge plan already. That's in his past, so he's sort of the guy. This is his moment to step up and make a difference. So I hope that happens. I really think that would be for the best. There's another meeting that's actually happening sooner. It's this Thursday. I believe you may go to this one.
I'm going to try to go.
Yeah, so this is also the Neighborhood and Long-Term Planning Committee. Is it 6 o'clock on Thursday?
6 o'clock at Sullivan Chambers,
right? So
and televised.
Yeah. So there was recently a report came back about sort of at least the initial plan. It wasn't no contract signed yet, but for how the Foundry building, which was gifted to the city as part of the Alexandria rezoning some years ago, how that might
and that's
be managed.
Totally within the city's purview. It's not like
city owns a building.
It's not like the okay. City owns
a building, and there's been a desire to have.
And the zoning is correct for what that is, or does that also involve zoning changes?
I don't think you really need to change any.
There's no
zoning
housing
at all,
involved in that one
because it's all pretty much done within the envelope of the existing building.
Okay.
So it's really just a matter of refitting the building.
Can you remind me what it was used for before?
A foundry.
So it's literally a
once upon a time, but in more recent years it was, I'm sure, used for other purposes, but I don't actually recall what those purposes were.
For people that don't.
Well, I mean, foundry is like if you were making forging things in steel, but
so it's basically right. So there was that.
So I don't know what they were actually forging in there, whether it was in steel or not.
Well, it could have been making things.
Could just making
things.
Stuff.
It's a makerspace.
Yeah, it's makerspace.
I know that's another word you don't like, but I like that word.
Well, the thing is that people are sort of trying to sort of put a new face on manufacturing, which I think is all well and good.
Well, it's become very personal. It's like Uber, like do-it-yourselfers.
But if a person who was a machinist, who was machining parts for automobiles, that was a real skill, and it's an important skill. But people might say, well, he's just working in the automotive industry, so now they would call him a maker. This way he's a specialist, and he's got some smarts and whatever. Right. So anyway, it's a name, but there's some desire to have like a makerspace. I think the holy grail of the foundry use would be some kind of planning where young people in Cambridge can actually get connected to some of the skills and maybe even opportunities in places like Kendall Square and whatever. And that's tricky to do. Right. But there's also some desire to have some performance space for the arts and what have you. So there's some disagreement. It was, as I heard it characterized in the Cambridge Chronicle, as a lukewarm reception when the plan came before the council. But remember, the main thing is, well, not the main thing, but one
it has to be sustaining.
This can't be a money sink for the city, so that it's going to be, the city has to keep pouring significant amounts of money in every year just to keep it going. So the idea was to find a use so that even if there is to be some future city subsidy, that it will not be a huge drain. So it's got to be somewhat self-supporting.
So is the idea to actually turn it over eventually to a management company so that the city is not involved in?
Yeah, I mean,
like with I'm going to bring that up. The Cambridge Multicultural Arts Center. What's the difference?
When the Bullfinch Courthouse was kind of restored and repurposed some years ago, what happened? There was a contract set up. The Cambridge Multicultural Arts Center was crafted as part of it, and there was something about semi-autonomous leadership in maintaining that. Some of us have never been particularly thrilled with how much of a benefit it has been for the community, but it's there.
So it's a nonprofit organization?
I think it's a nonprofit entity.
Organized with its own executive director,
With
its own board.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's not like
Raises its own money.
right. So the manager,
Okay.
the city manager, and the city council, they don't direct them. You must do this, or
Okay.
whatever.
But they get some money
I
from
believe
us,
they
you
do
said.
get out of the public celebrations budget every year. They get a
Is it
stipend.
a fixed amount or a
I
stipend?
think it's a fixed amount.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I only remember that because it was a few years ago when there was a controversy. Because technically they were the leaseholders for the dance complex in Central
Right,
Square.
right.
And then they were trying to squeeze more money out of it. And so the city council had withheld the payment
Wow.
to the Cambridge Multi Arts Center as leverage until they basically ceded authority to the dance complex
I
here.
remember that now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're still around. They must be self-sustaining. I mean,
Yeah, oh
they,
yeah,
They have
oh yeah.
performances. I myself do not go there
And they-
very much, but I think they rent the space out a lot. It's a very
Right.
pretty space.
Yeah, yeah. So
So I'm just wondering if that is a model that's going to be brought up at all. I mean, it's not a maker space. I know that, but
basically, so it was in the city council's hands initially,
Yeah.
but then they had the wisdom, I think it was wisdom,
Yes.
to basically
Hand it off.
hand the authority off to the Cambridge
Okay.
Redevelopment Authority, who had a little freer hand on how to do things.
do you think they'll do that with the Foundry?
They did already.
Oh, they already did.
But then-
Okay,
but
and
then-
they're the
but
ones
the-
that came up with this idea.
But the Redevelopment Authority
Yeah.
is basically five
Yeah.
appointees and a
Right.
few staff people.
Yeah.
They're not going to run a center, so
No, that's not their job.
right. So they then extend. They put out requests for proposals, and they got. I think there were several entities that expressed interest, but ultimately it was just a one bid. And
Okay.
so that was a bid, and they were going to sort of have a certain amount of innovation companies doing stuff. They will
Be more
generate grant.
more active use in turn, not just performance,
Right.
but more
But they'll-
teaching, workshops, things like
Yeah,
that.
but then those entities would then help financially support the rest
Right,
of the use
exactly.
of the grief and nonprofits. So I think some of the city councils were unhappy with the balance.
Right, they felt
Maybe-
the community was left out a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know if so much it was that they were
Or
left
that the
out. but-
space itself physically
Yeah,
wasn't big enough.
I think some
right?
people might have felt, well, we should have exclusive use of this
Yeah.
space.
Or
for
a bigger
these.
space, because I guess I have to look more carefully at the plan. The
Yeah,
community space wasn't.
I mean,
as
I
big
like the
maybe.
idea of shared spaces. So
Yeah.
for part of the day,
Right.
you could use it for these innovator
Right.
people, and then later on, it becomes for kids to be.
Yeah,
using.
I think there should be
whatever.
something fixed though about this. This is only time this is can use for community. You can't just sell it to the
Well,
highest bidder.
that'll be up to the way that the management goes. So
right.
there are some details to be worked out, and
Right.
hence the meeting this Thursday.
Right.
Again, it's not really in the city council's control, but the lease is not. Basically, the contracts are not yet signed,
Mm-hmm.
and the council doesn't really have any control over it at this point. But they are councilors, so
That's true. They don't.
no, they don't. But what they can do is they can say, "This is what we want. This is what we don't like,"
Yeah, we'd like
and
to
that
tweak
can
this
be
a little bit.
influential.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean,
there is.
I frankly thought they had that chance to do that, but maybe not. So that's the thing.
We'll see. I think, in spite of what some may believe, the
Yeah.
truth is that city manager, whether it's an acting city manager, or a past city manager, or a future city manager,
final say.
they do, but they do listen to the councilors. So councilors are influential. Nobody wants to get the councilors all
Excuse me.
ticked off, right?
Right.
So,
No, I understand, but there's some.
You try and meet them
You sort of
halfway.
have to finally say, I'm in charge.
I'm in charge. That's exactly right.
It's kind of like the parent.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say.
And as
I'm not
Richie Rossi
comparing-
said when this came
Yeah.
up at the council several
Yeah.
weeks ago, says you have to respect the process. And the process
Right.
said we're going to do it this way here.
Right.
It's now at this stage here.
Right.
And if you had any reservations, you should have
Yeah.
spoke then or forever hold your
Well, I
peace.
guess they felt they did, but it wasn't taken into consideration. But
The dollars still have to work
I heard
out.
that report in the summer, and I don't remember anybody questioning as much as they did now. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it was just the way it finally got
Yeah,
put out.
so there will be a meeting. There may be other
I'm definitely
meetings
gonna go to that,
on
so that's
this
good.
coming Thursday
Okay.
at 6 o'clock in the Sullivan Chamber.
yeah, and
City
televised,
Hall,
so
and
you'll be able to
televised.
get
So
it
if you have an interest in it,
online.
definitely said it, you might want to tune in for that. So that's
Did you
coming up.
mention the Riverside zoning thing tomorrow at 5:30? Because I
yeah.
got a special alert about that.
Yeah, so there was a petition, zoning petition came
Riverside
in
people.
last year, I think it was,
Well,
or early this year.
early this
I can't remember exactly,
Yeah.
about wanting to rezone a rather large piece of neighborhood in the Riverside part of Cambridge.
Right.
basically, it was a downzoning petition. It was going to limit, I think it was largely spurred by some.
Well, there's a lot of
backyard
going on.
Yeah, all right. And I can certainly, if it's a matter of sort of doing things in the backs of houses that start to become very intrusive.
Well,
But
they're separate houses almost.
yeah, but the
It's going on all over the city.
right, but the petition that came out
Yeah.
was pretty much would
Very
have
restrictive.
pretty much made everything non-conforming in that whole area.
Right.
Made it kind of tough for people just to do modifications to their house without going through a nearly impossible
Yeah.
zoning appeals type of process.
Right.
So it didn't get defeated. It just sort of was allowed
was
to
pushed
expire
along.
and then
Yeah.
refiled.
Refiled.
And I
okay.
believe it was refiled pretty much as is, which I think is not a good prescription for
Are
success.
you sure of that?
That's Patrick Barrett says it was exactly
okay.
the same.
How is it different than the accessory apartment thing? Which is,
Accessory apartments was something that to create an as of right use to do certain things within your building, like
so not to create another building, but within your building.
exactly. It was
Okay,
about
all right, that's
using
different.
basements in ways
Right. That was the barrier.
to make legal things that people were already doing.
Okay, and that did
basically.
get passed. That was the barrier.
That got passed handily. It was
Yes.
really impressively so. I was
Right.
quite surprised.
So this is different in that it controls what you can do with the space around your building. Yes?
That's right. So that's really what zoning usually does, is it basically regulates density, heights, and things like that. Now, I'm not going to give all the particulars about it,
Yeah.
but it's a downzoning petition.
Right.
I think the same arguments before, which basically meant that it was going to stifle housing growth. Now, there's
Right.
not a lot of room for housing growth there, honestly.
Yeah.
But there's some. And, sort of a little, some would characterize it, certainly the people from A Better Cambridge, who's a smart growth promoting
Right.
group.
They said,
There
go to
as they
that
said,
meeting.
go to this isn't a good
Yeah.
thing, right? There are other entities that I'm sure will say, no, this is a wonderful thing, we have to protect our neighborhoods
Protect the
as
neighborhood,
is.
Protect open space.
Yeah. So I don't know where it's going to go, but honestly, I don't think if it were to go forward as is, whether it necessarily is going to be successful as a zoning petition. Otherwise, it would have been successful when it was proposed
So
before.
is this a hearing?
So there,
It's 5:30
right, so
tomorrow, right?
It's
Wednesday?
the ordinance committee meeting.
Oh, it's an ordinance committee.
Is tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget exactly what time of day, but we've got it here. 5:30 tomorroor. Ordinance
So
committee.
5:30, so
for
it
the
is
public.
also at the same place?
It's at the-
Also televised,
also
folks. so-
televised,
Good.
right? I think people should pay attention to.
Yeah. Because it's
things
going to
like
happen
this.
in other parts of the city. It's happening all over the city. People are building all of a sudden,
Yeah, it's what I like always point out when it comes to development is that most of the places that are really subject to significant development, as opposed to a little backyard infill here and there,
Yeah.
are the places that were former industrial areas, warehouse zones. It's not like we have a lot of undeveloped space, but there were a few spaces, like North Point area. Used to be University Park, was former Simplex site in
Right.
Cambridgeport. Some parts of East Cambridge was all industrial down by the waterfront.
But this is residential areas.
Yeah.
This is a little different.
And until recently, most of that development was happening kind of close to the Boston edge of the city in East Cambridge. Of course, that all mostly got built up except for North Point.
Right.
And so the attention shifted out toward, especially in the era of housing
Elway.
development,
Yeah,
to the
fresh-
Elway
yeah.
area.
And
So it
that's
was
also
their
like
turn.
Pressure,
So
yeah.
then people out in that area saying like, oh, look at the pace of development. Of course, they conveniently forget that prior to the development there, it was happening like wildfire in East Cambridge.
But on either end, though,
shifted.
you're talking about bigger development. You're talking about storage.
Significant development has largely not affected established neighborhoods.
No.
It
So
tends to
now
be on
this,
the
though,
fringe.
is the infill, like your backyard.
Yeah, so this
People
is-
building a
this is-
separate house to make more money or to. I don't know
Yeah.
how they get it rezoned, though. If it was a single family, how do you get it zoned to be another house?
Well, some of the times that may be permissible. There's
Well, I guess it is because these things have been built.
Yeah, I mean, in mid-Cambridge, there used to be some tear downs that's happening several decades ago, so they passed something called the townhouse ordinance that actually encouraged backyard infill as opposed to tearing down old
Okay,
houses.
so actually then
And
this
putting up
is what
boxes.
probably allows this to happen.
That's probably what,
Because they're not tearing
what it
it
is.
down,
I'd
they're
have
just
to,
building new.
yeah, I'll pull a Bob Healy and says, I don't know nothing about zoning.
Well, they obviously got a permit to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some reasonable reason why some people might want to change
because they don't want all
something.
this more parking. And I mean, I don't. Are they actually? I think they have to provide new construction. You'd have to provide space.
Yeah, though the parking requirements seem to be shifting sands these days.
Well, not for those small ones, though. I think you do
I think
have to
that's
have a
pretty much
driveway or
you-
parking in the back.
Something like
That's
that.
what
yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah. So anyway, things are
Anything-
shifting.
Yeah,
so
that's a lot with zoning and anything else because we don't have too much time left.
No. I think
Anything further?
a few things that are maybe worth being on the radar. I'll just mention here
Yeah.
that.
Any other good meetings happening before the next city council meeting, which is until the 17th?
Let's see. I'd say. Let's see. The answer is maybe, a big fat maybe. Election Commission, City
that's the
Council
same
meeting.
night as some
Oh yeah,
other
there was a report to me, sort of the boondoggle report came at the last City Council meeting, was a report from this broadband task force.
Oh, right.
That basically there are
Oh,
some
right.
who very
Yeah.
much adamantly want to have a build out of a municipal broadband capacity, but it may be extremely expensive.
Right, so this has to go back to the drawing board.
So
kind
the
of.
Neighborhood Long-Term Planning Committee will have a meeting on Tuesday, October 18th at 5:30 to talk about it.
Where is that meeting? Maybe that's.
That'll be also at the Sullivan Chamber.
Oh,
All right?
okay.
So that's coming up
That's
for
on the
those who have
18th,
an
though.
interest in that. That's on the 18th.
That's
so
after
that's
the
a
next
ways.
city
It's
council
after the next
meeting,
City
yeah.
Council meeting.
The Hog Festival, we should remember.
Oh, that's right. Actually,
Sunday.
I was.
Well, it's the weekend.
I have planned like a Alewife to Oak Grove hike on Sunday, but we may
Yeah, I
shift it
saw
up to
that.
Saturday because
Oh.
we may have a hurricane. Matthew may be visiting
Wait, no,
us.
I
this
thought
weekend.
Sunday, I thought Mark had something you haven't.
It's Saturday.
Oh,
But anyway,
All
so,
right.
but there's also on, I think, is it Oktoberfest?
Is that this weekend?
I think it is.
No, I think you're right because.
Honk actually terminates at Harvard Square.
On
They have a
Sunday.
parade in the middle of the Oktoberfest.
Right, and Bread and Puppet Theater are going to be there.
A lot of the Bread and Puppet Theater are part of the parade.
They're part of the parade.
Mary
They're also
Curtin
doing a
and
performance
others. Yep.
that day because I missed it when they were at Cambridge College.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's always a lot of fun.
Yes, that's
I was
on
kind of hoping
Sunday.
if we do our hike on Saturday, we'll actually come back and I'll probably drop off in
So
Harvard
you're
Square.
doing? I did that hike? Didn't I do that?
Yeah,
hike
I
last
think maybe
week?
so.
Last year.
We'll do
Not
that.
last week.
But we have to shift the date. We'll see. I don't want to
All
rain
right.
out.
I'll have to look at
anyway,
that.
that's a coming. So anyway, some exciting things. Keep also on your radar for later in October, where the people of the proposed lighting ordinance, is actually two facets to that in a back-to-back ordinance committees on the 27th. So
Okay. When is the
Anyway.
last date to register? Is it after next week?
something like the
19th?
19th, I think.
Okay, so keep that
anyway,
in mind.
until next week, this has been another exciting edition of Cambridge Inside
Out.